It's Song Talk Radio.
Welcome to Song Talk Radio, the show with songwriters talking to other songwriters about the craft of songwriting, most of the time. We usually share tips, tools, and techniques, and together we all become better at writing songs, most of the time. Not today, though. I'm your host, Neil Modi, and with me, my co-host, Phil Emery. How are you doing, Phil?
Here in St. John's, I am doing just fine, Neil.
Very good, Phil.
Yes.
For the rest of you, please send your comments and questions to @SongTalkRadio on Facebook or Instagram, feedback@songtalk.ca for the email, and we'll share your thoughts on the show. And please visit songtalk.ca to see the show post for this episode, to find links to resources we mention, and to download lyric and chord sheets to follow along with the songs that we feature. Tonight, we're very happy to have YouTuber Mike Enjo join us all the way from Australia. Mike Enjo is an Australian singer-songwriter and producer. He's a producer of the YouTube channel Creative Sauce, which has over 140,000 subscribers and endeavors to open up the world of home recording to old and new musicians alike. Hope you're well, Mike, and thank you for getting up early in the morning to be with us.
G'day, Neil and Phil. It's nice to be here. Yes, it's not really singer-songwriter hour, like 7 a.m., but it is when you're my age, though. It is when you... Well, I guess other people get up for gardening and things like that, but, here we are. How lucky.
Well, I'll tell you, as you get older, it's just impossible to get up late. I was on holiday last week. I was on vacation. I was getting up at 6:30 every morning. I just can't help it.
It's so true, isn't it? It's so true. I haven't even got young kids to blame for it. It's just,
there you go.
That's enough sleep.
We're pets. We have condo construction all around us to blame us for getting up.
Isn't that fun?
Yes. All right. Before we get to talking about Mike's YouTube channel, just another heads up about our songwriting challenge for 2024, which is to write a holiday song. Check out songtalk.ca, and on the sidebar there is a link there to a dedicated webpage we have for the songwriting challenge with all episodes about holiday songwriting themed stuff, and we're happy to say that we've already started to receive listener songs to our challenge. So thank you guys for sending those in.
So productive.
More productive than Phil and I. We still have to work on ours, and we have to talk about ours first before we talk about yours. But worry not, we are collecting them, and we will for sure do some episodes where we feature your songs, listener songs, on the show. So definitely look forward to that in the fall when it starts to get a little bit colder here in North America. Yeah. And just a little article that I saw this week. I followed the Disc Makers blog, and this is kind of an old argument now, but I just thought it was interesting. Vinyl versus CDs, what sounds better? And they go through a bunch of items to look at, things like dynamic range and comparing that, and compression and volume, and how CDs versus vinyl handle bass, and this whole thing called analog warmth and longevity of the medium, and all those sorts of things to decide at which one is better. We're the three of us are all old enough to remember vinyl.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm also young enough that I never owned any vinyl. My dad had vinyl. I borrowed vinyl from the library, but when I bought my first music thing, it was a tape, and then very quickly I bought CDs. So,
well, I think a lot of the harshness of CDs initially came when it was a brand new format. When the format was new, there wasn't a lot of error correction in the digital to analog converters. There was some, but not great. And when radio stations would play CDs directly, I would often hear the CDs dropping frames, because you'd be listening to it and suddenly things would be slightly out of beat. Not like with each other, but just suddenly it's, where the 2 and the 4 would just be slightly off. And I used to think it was really, really tired until I found out that those really early CD players would do that. So I think they did sound kind of harsh back then, but I think now the digital to analog converters are pretty high quality, so that may not be as true as it once was.
I think the article was pretty interesting in the sense that, you know, I read it and I thought, well, definitely whoever wrote it broke down the fact that it couldn't be argued that CD was somewhat superior in a technical context. And it's interesting that Phil would talk about, you know, things like detecting the little skips and things like that. Whereas, of course, with vinyl, it was probably a whole groove that it would jump occasionally on the audio for most of us, or the pops and the crackles. And yet, it's a fascinating thing that human beings have in this sense of we can see through all of that, you know, and there's some things we love regardless of their flaws. I mean, it's like, you know, we'll love a song even though it's played on a crappy old acoustic guitar slightly out of tune. If the song is good enough, we'll overlook that, and we have a sort of fascination with the imperfect. Isn't that wonderful? Because we are imperfect after all.
Humans relate to imperfection. And I think that's what gives things its soul. I mean, there was some things about, you know, how the fact you can get bass frequencies that just would not actually be reproducible on vinyl. And I remember talking to Nick Blagona when I worked with him, and he was saying how his favorite thing to do is when he would do an album with a band is like figuring out where the songs would go, not just in terms of flow, but how they would affect the cutting of the vinyl. Like you'd have to have, I think he said, songs with less bass towards the center of the hub.
That's right. Yeah.
Because like the grooves were thinner there. So there was a whole bunch of factors that made our albums what they were because of the medium. And that kind of gave it a certain soul, because when they've often redone vinyl on CD and added all the stuff that they took off because they couldn't stick it on vinyl, it's often worse. And I wish they would stop doing that. I heard I have a Peter Frampton Comes Alive, which of course in my was so huge. If you were not alive when that was out, you can't imagine how huge this album was. It was a double album, and as far I'd never heard of this guy before. I was a kid, but still, a huge album. So I know the album well, and then I got the CD version, and they added all these songs within the normal playing list of stuff that didn't fit in. And they weren't as good. They made the thing worse, you know? So, you know, very often limitations make things better.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So true.
Yeah, the article actually made me think of something that I read. I can't remember if I read it or I saw a YouTube video on this thing about the thesis of this other article was basically modern pop music stinks, right? But we're trying to look at it more objectively. One of the metrics that they looked at was texture of instruments and stuff like that. Whereas in the 50s and 60s and 70s, especially, before synthesizers and things came along, there was such a variety of acoustic instruments that they would use. They'd incorporate orchestras and real violins and real brass and all that sort of wonderful stuff that would enhance the sort of textural palette of the sonic landscape, right? And I think part of it is people think that digital music, if it's driven by synthesizers, it tends to sound more pristine and sterile and very and doesn't have a lot of necessarily variety between them, right? Like synthesizers kind of they kind of sound all the same, and they don't necessarily, unless they're super fat, they don't sound like they have that kind of the thing. And then that other article was actually talking about how when you try and measure sonic variety and sonic textural variety in songs or top Billboard songs, it has declined quite a bit. And that may be part of and on top of that, what you were talking about, Mike, about imperfection, everything now is pitch tuned and quantized to death. So there's a little bit of that thing, but those are all musical decisions. That doesn't really have anything to do with the medium. But I think the two of them get conflated, and because everything is done digitally now,
I for a long time was, thinking about this thing, because I think as a mid 50-year-old guy, but I've got teenage children, I hear a lot of sort of contemporary music, I suppose you would call it, and the musician in me hears the lack of, solos, introductions, key changes, tempo changes, all of the tools that I would normally use, to engage my listeners, if I've got any listeners, and then it's all, but I'm sort of coming full circle with this now and reminding myself that that's not why a 17-year-old listens to music. There's so much more to it. It would be something about the image of the artist and what they represent as well, and whether that person seems to speak to their struggles and all these kinds of things. So, that young 17-year-old guy like my son who's listening to rap music, he doesn't care whether there's a key change or not. He really doesn't. It's something about, he cares way more if the guy is swearing in the first verse or not, and that makes it cool. And as much as 50-year-old guys, we might frown on that, but that's where they're at. That's what they're going to identify with. And, arguably you could say that when Bob Dylan first came on the scene, musically he wasn't, igniting any fires with musical structure or depth or things. And neither was his singing ability something to, in a traditional sense, sing home about. But he touched people's emotions with what he wanted to talk about, his social commentary, and that's why they were listening to it. So not everyone's listening to music in terms of, like we do, in terms of things that we can quantify. How many different keys does that artist play? I don't know. Probably people don't say that anyway, but yeah.
That's a very important part for songwriting. We won't be talking about songwriting too much, but it's it's an important thing to realize that people listen to things in a different way than we will.
Well, very, very much so. I mean, I remember a good friend of mine in university turned me on to Soundgarden in the 90s. And he loved Louder Than Love and Outshined. He hated Super Unknown. He hated Dead on the Upside. I didn't care much for Louder Than Love. I loved Outshine, same as him. Or what was the second album? Anyway, whatever, the one that had Outshine on it. But I loved Super Unknown. So we both love Soundgarden, but we like them for completely different reasons.
Right.
And I sort of picked up where he left off. He liked the early stuff. I liked the later stuff. It was kind of funny. But yeah, even and he wasn't a musician type, but still, everyone, even fans of the same vintage will listen to the same music for completely different reasons.
It's interesting. I sing, obviously on the channel, I sometimes put my own music out there, and I sing with my partner, Susie. She's a wonderful singer. In all sorts of ways. I could sing her praises for hours. And usually when I put out our videos, despite all of my production and songwriting work and everything, she gets most of the comments. Oh, she's got a wonderful voice. And I'm sitting there thinking, I wrote the damn thing, but anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And produced it and recorded it.
And interestingly, she sings with some passion. And people will comment, wow, she said, I'm exposing her a little bit here because people will say, she sings with such emotion and, she really connects with the song. But the truth is, and I think she would say this quite happily in public, she could care less about the lyrics. Most of the time when she's singing, she's responding to melody and harmony, and she loves that. And sometimes after I've written a song, months later, she'll say, what is that song about? And she's sung it. Yeah. And people have said, oh, she sings with such passion and she sings with such connection to the song. She wouldn't know what the song's about most of the time.
Yeah, so that's hilarious.
It's an interesting, not everyone connects with it in the same way. And for her, I like lyrical artists. I'm a big fan of Billy Bragg, for example. And she's like, what is that? Where's the melody? Where's the melody? And I'm saying, but the lyrics, did you hear what he said? And she's like, I don't care.
Wow. Very true. Very true. Okay. Okay, let's get on to the main meat of the channel. So you're here to talk about your YouTube channel. I've been a fan of yours, Mike, for going on a few years, and I was, back when I started using Actually, I was using Cakewalk software for a long time, and then you were a big star with Cakewalk and your whole series of videos for helping people. And I would always, we'd be one of those guys that, go check out Mike's videos if you get started on Cakewalk. So, and and especially now that I've switched recently to Studio One, and you're also a Studio One user, so I continue to follow you on your other channel, which is awesome. But anyway, so I just wanted to ask you, like if you can just give us the history of your YouTube channel. What made you start it? What made you decide on what to do it on? How did that work for you?
Sure, it was an accidental decision. My daughter, who was about 13 at the time, had made some videos about some software or other, and she'd got a few thousand views, and I sort of saying, oh, wow, really, people watch that sort of thing, do they? And I thought, well, I guess initially I hadn't intended to make a purely music channel. It was called Creative Source because it was going to be about all things creative, because I dabble in other creative things. But I found within the first week or two, oh, you better not do that. You better stick to one topic if you're going to create a YouTube channel. So music was going to be the one that I could most easily talk about, for years, which so far has been true. And it was supposed to be just a bit of a pastime to begin with, and then it grew reasonably quickly, and then after, I guess it became my full-time job after about 10 or 11 months, which is incredibly fortunate, really. But to be honest with you, before that, I'd been basically unemployed. I was supposed to be a musician, but I was really an unemployed musician for about 6 or 7 years before that. So the decision to make it my full-time job was pretty easy, because it didn't take long before I was earning more money than I was as a street musician, an occasional, gigging musician. I was in that position really because I'd gone in and out of proper jobs as musicians do. Looking back, I think every 7 years I tried to have a proper job. I was a nurse at one point many years ago. I'd worked in the corporate world. I was in IT before that. And I really had some good positions, but I was never satisfied with a 9-to-5 job or sort of existing in a corporate world and wearing a suit and all that kind of thing. And so one day I was sitting in my pretty decent job actually, and I just decided, I was sitting in this glass office and I realized I didn't experience any seasons ever. It was always 23 degrees, whatever I was doing. And I quit. I just quit at 40 something. And my boss couldn't believe it. He was like, what are you doing? You're crazy. And I said, I'm going to become a busker again. And I went out and sung on the streets and grew my hair long and grew a long beard and everything at that time. And and it was all right. It was good, but it was only good if you were prepared not to own anything of any significance, or if you were prepared to always be struggling to pay your electricity bills or whatever it was, And I was sort of happy with that, to be honest with you, in many ways. But it was probably not going to be sustainable. You always have to have your voice in good condition. It's a bit like being a farmer. One bag season for some reason, and poverty comes pretty quickly. So I wasn't a big success. I could go on about my whole life. So I had been involved in music and music productions and things over the years. I obviously had a big musical background, but as I say, it always hop backwards and forwards between trying to have a proper job and trying to be a musician. And this was such a fortunate time for me, because all of that previous experience, either from a technical point of view, because I was able to build my own web page and not have to employ someone to do it, and I was able to teach myself how to use cameras and lights, and I'd already done video editing before anyway for a TV show in Australia in another corporate life, I guess, or close to corporate. And then this sort of encompassed all of that. My passion for music, the experience I'd had in that production, but it's also handy if you have a bit of a business head as well. And I had that from my experience in there. And I didn't need to employ anyone to do anything. So I was able to be completely self-sufficient with no budget whatsoever. But fortunately, and often behind anybody who has some success, I guess, will be a partner in the background who's incredibly supportive. And in this case with Susie, she's an accountant by trade, and she was like, this looks like this could work for you. So, she sort of pretty much supported me through those 10 months, financially in those terms. So I was able to treat it like a full-time job, even though I was earning, very little money from it. And yeah, I was just very fortunate that it just sort of took off for me. But I was able to put in those hours. Many people are trying to start YouTube channels, and they're trying to maintain a full-time job at the same time. And I was, as I say, fortunately with Susie, able to go, I didn't really try, I was still sort of performing a little bit here and there as a musician, but I didn't have to, kind of thing. And I was able to put some time into it, which really, really helped. Time is valuable with this game.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you have to do it full time if you want to be successful at it, or at least
I know I'm good friends with Sanjay C, who's he's got a much bigger channel than me, and he doesn't do it full time. He still maintains a day job, so I don't know how he does it.
Maybe he produces a ton of content, that guy. Yeah,
he does. Yeah, his whole weekend.
So how much content are you producing? Like, is it like one video a week?
It's at least one a week, but I have another couple of channels, and like currently at the moment, for example, I appear to be making one a week, but I'm actually working on a course as well. So I'll spend like this week, the one video I'm producing for next week is taking me 4 days this week. So that's a bit time consuming, but most of the time my one video will take up about 2.5 days. And at the moment I'm spending the rest of the week recording a course about EQ.
Wow.
Which is it's actually quite fascinating. Whenever you teach something, you always learn something along the way.
Of course, yeah.
I like to fact check myself, before I put content out there. I don't want to add to the pile of misinformation that's already out there. So you've maybe been doing something for 20 years or something, and then you think, well, I'm going to tell people how to do that, but then you think, hang on, have I been doing it correctly? So it's a good opportunity to check yourself. And
I feel like that's what we do every week on this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great part of learning. If you ever think to yourself, oh, I know everything, I'm just going to tell everyone about it, that would be a horrendously arrogant position to come from anyway.
Absolutely. Nice to be humble. But so what does it take then? I mean, you spent 10 months or so building, your thing and learning about it. I'm sure those first few videos you did don't compare to your more recent ones.
Yeah, they were pretty
production quality, at least.
Yeah, production quality, and like actually talking to camera, looking at the camera. I mean, I'm kind of sick of looking at cameras. So when I go on vacation, I don't take any photos hardly at all. Now I'm really happy to put the camera down and not look into. I noticed with my older videos that I was almost overexcited. I think someone had advised, you have to be bigger on camera or something like that. So I was kind of yelled at the camera and talked at 100 miles an hour and, these sort of things. So, but there's nothing that I consciously thought of. It's just, now I've made in total, I guess, for the 3 channels, over 600 or 700 videos in that time. So it just becomes normal to look in the lens. I'm not doing it, by the way, on live here because I'm looking at you guys over there. But yeah, it's even the first few times to actually look at a lens and talk to it was a kind of a strange experience.
Do you script your videos and use a teleprompter, or do you just do it on the fly?
I don't use a teleprompter because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. So even the slight eye wiggle that people get, even when they're good at using teleprompters, irritates me to look at as a viewer. And I feel like once I see that with someone, that the illusion has been ruined for me. So I certainly plan my videos in terms of their sections, and I make bullet points. And then basically my method is I film every single rehearsal until I get one right, and that's the one I keep.
Right on. Okay.
So it's all free form then. You're just basically talking.
Yeah, I am, but yeah. So I figured out, because it's very hard to talk without saying a lot, right? And normally I found I'll say, if anyone watches my video and I'm saying it means I'm probably not overly confident in the subject I'm talking about. It's a little trade secret. So there we go. So I'm trying to get takes which don't have any ums in them most of the time, and you know, pauses and unnatural things like that. So I've discovered that I can talk for about 2 minutes on something I'm reasonably confident with without umming and ahhing. So most of my videos are made up of little 2 or 3 minute sections, which I then sandwich together in what I call chapters. Now, to film a 2 minute section, I've definitely had times where I've sat here and I've done up to 40 or 50 takes sometimes. Yeah. So I'm sort of ad-libbing at the beginning, but each time I'll be refining it a little bit. And I'm a little, and that's not because I'm really stuffing up so much, is that I want to come across as genuine and natural. And I don't want to have any fluff in the sentences. I don't want to have anything. It's a bit like songwriting, really. It's like I'm self-editing with each take, and I'm thinking, no, I didn't need to say that, or I'm repeating something I said earlier, so that's redundant. I don't want redundancy in there. So that's really where all those takes come from. They're all really rehearsals. Occasionally I get one in the first 2 or 3 times. But yeah, it does take a while. I know some people are very, very good, and they're able to do it off the cuff. My friend Pete Johns, who has another channel, Studio Live Today, he mostly does live shows, and he talks very naturally, just off the cuff. So
it's like anything; you have to go with your strengths. So after you've put out these videos, what are you doing to promote them?
So early on, when I first started the channel, I was basically using the hustle technique, which is go on as many Facebook pages as you can and post your videos until you piss people off. Go on what was back then Gear Sluts, the page. What have they renamed it to now? And everyone still calls it Gear Sluts.
I forget what it's renamed to.
Yeah, I know. Reddit, you know, I tried Instagram and things didn't really work, but yeah, I used to try all of those things. If anyone was starting out, I'd say you do need to do that, because it's going to be very difficult to get more than a few views on YouTube. I didn't tell any family and friends that I was doing it, because I didn't want to get sort of fake numbers out of it by just, you know, my auntie Kathy, who wasn't interested in music production or knew what it was, giving me a view. That just doesn't really help. So I didn't actually tell anybody, even my singer-songwriter friends and things. I just didn't tell them. I just tried to let the content build its own audience, you know, organically. But now I don't do so much sharing on other social media platforms, so because it doesn't help the YouTube algorithm very much, which everyone talks about endlessly. But essentially, when someone comes straight from Facebook and they've clicked on a link and they've gone to YouTube, YouTube doesn't know much about who they are and how they clicked on that or why they clicked on it. And YouTube kind of needs all that information for its algorithm. So especially with my new Studio One channel, Neil, that you'd be familiar with, well, it's not new anymore, it's probably over a year old, but I basically didn't promote that. I don't, even on my own Facebook page with it, I don't post many videos on there because the algorithm needs to know, you know, why someone's watching your video, what their history is and all that kind of thing if they're going to recommend it. So
you would rather people arrive at it through YouTube? Like as they're browsing on YouTube?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So are there any things you do to promote it on YouTube?
No. The idea really is,
Is there anything you can do?
really, it's making good enough, trying to make good enough content, thumbnails and titles. Most people watch your videos on YouTube via the recommendations they get when they open up the app. Rather than by subscriptions, because on subscriptions you have to go to a whole other tab, which hardly anyone ever goes to. So really subscriptions don't get you many extra views. So it's called a vanity metric, subscribers, really. It's not, it looks good.
I know the channels I'm subscribed to, I definitely see when they get it, when you post a new one.
But it's probably because you've been watching their videos. You see, it's a sort of
right. So I could be subscribed to a channel, but if I don't watch any of their videos, I wouldn't see their.
It won't come up in their recommendations. Yeah, and likewise, you'll probably certainly for me, I have a lot of channels in my recommendations I'm not subscribed to. So it's kind of one of those things that it's nice. It certainly helps to have more subscribers for all kinds of business reasons. But in terms of getting views, really the only answer, which it's a lot like music in this way, is you've got to produce good stuff. If you produce good stuff for long enough, people will find you.
Are you tagging? Are you tagging them? Tagging the videos or?
Tagging doesn't work.
Really?
That used to be a thing. But actually, probably even about 3 years ago now, YouTube themselves announced that keywords and tags, they don't even use them anymore to recommend things. Yeah, maybe for search, but basically they're going to go on the title for search. And that's one other way that people can find YouTube videos. And it's good for evergreen material, search. And so some videos I'll make thinking, okay, I'm not going to get many views on this immediately, but over the next 2 or 3 years, I will. Some topics, like my course, EQing, are pretty evergreen. There's not much has really changed in it. I mean, there's the odd new plugin that comes out here and there, which can do some fancy new thing, but the basics don't change. So certain things. So, often now all of the topics are saturated, but I try and look at things, and even if another big YouTuber has had a success with it, I'll just think, well, how can I do that differently, or how can I explain it better? And I guess that's the main thing that I discovered in the course of this, which I didn't know about myself, because I'm not a Grammy award-winning producer in any way. I mean, I've worked semi-professionally in the music industry, or professionally at times, but nothing to go right home about, sort of thing. But a few decades of experience, I guess you have something to talk about. But I discovered about myself, it was the way I talk about it that people enjoy, or the way I impart information. I sort of have a way of breaking down things, just blowing my own trumpet a little bit here, but I didn't. It's just where I see my own strength is, okay, that other YouTuber might be a Grammy award-winning, producer, but when they explain how to use a compressor, you end up feeling confused because they don't know how to explain things well, perhaps. Whereas I don't have their accolades, but I'm pretty confident that if you've never been able to understand it before, I can probably explain it in a way that you can understand it. And,
that's always the case. I mean, just because you're knowledgeable and successful does not make you a good teacher, and vice versa.
Yeah, they're completely different skill sets. Do you have any tips for naming? Obviously, the naming has some effect on people viewing your videos. Is it? Do you make sure you put the keyword in the title? Does like how to do blank? Is that a good one? Or
there's certain things which are helpful, I guess, if you're thinking about it in keyword sense. So keywords would be important when you hope that video will be found with search. So if it's a topic that people might search for, then in the title basically is the most important thing. there's quite a few tools out there, third-party tools. Usually they're free. TubeBuddy is one of them, for example, where you can do keyword searches and you can sort of see what are people searching for, you know, and how saturated is that topic. So that's important. But if you're looking for the most common way that people find content, or the most content which is viewed on YouTube, is by recommendations. And with recommendations, you're looking for something more sensational. That's how you're going to get people in. And this is where you start to walk that whole tightrope of clickbait or not, you know. It's one of those things, everyone hates clickbait, but no one clicks on a video unless it's a little bit clickbaity, if that makes sense.
This new EQ plugin will change your life.
Yeah.
Is that why they always have, like, every thumbnail has, a, you know, the guy with the host with a big, like, open sort of surprise
I
face
know,
on
that's
it? Like,
right, yeah. And I'm very guilty of that. And you see, YouTubers consume a lot of YouTube material about how to make your things. And I think people must have done research. I remember reading this research like 4 years ago, and they would literally say, you know, the research has shown that if your face takes up 2/3 of the height of the thumbnail, you know, you'll get more clicks. And if you've got an open mouth, you'll get more clicks. And the bigger the expression, you know, the more clicks you'll get, which is why we're all going like this and what have you in all of our thumbnails. But I've also found that it's all a lot of rubbish as well, all of this research. You know, I've tried all of it, and some of my most successful videos have been the ones where it was Friday, I just wanted to make something quick and easy. I did very little research, but I thought it was a pretty interesting topic. I couldn't be bothered to think of a good title, so I just went, oh, it's Friday, I just want to have the weekend off, I'll make a quick title. Yeah, that thumbnail will do. And I've had a huge success. And other things, probably like the video I'm making at the moment, which I'm putting a huge amount of effort into, will go out next week and get like a couple of thousand views or something. You know, this is just, it seems like all of this research sometimes is a little bit of snake oil. But yeah, Phil's right. Certainly that's the idea is, the more sensational topic. Now, I have a little bit of a rant about it, I suppose. Unfortunately, what people have found is that the negativity sells much more than positivity in a thumbnail. And I just can't bring myself to do it. I just feel like once you enter into a negative world, your world's going to be negative. Your comments are going to be negative. You're going to be constantly involved in confrontational things and conflict in the comments and in the topics. And if that's where you want your mindset to be, fine. Or if you can handle that for the sake of success, you know, fine. But it took me a lot of years through a lot of mental health struggles to get to a positive state of mind. And I just don't feel like I want to be there.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, in this, and if nothing else, you'll be called out for being disingenuous because it's not you, right?
Yeah, well, I can be pretty negative at times.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
You should see me driving my car. When my kids were young, I could yell at them. But no, I just don't want to occupy that space. There's plenty of negativity in the world if you want to get drawn in by it. And you can, well, a whole other topic, but I've learned after 50 years on the planet that input equals output. It's a bit like your diet. You know, they say you are what you eat. If you eat rubbish, then you'll be pretty unhealthy. So I've realized that if you consume yourself in negativity, for me anyway, I can't speak for other people, but for me, I feel like I would become a pretty negative person. So I choose to not do that on all of my channels and to keep it reasonably positive, although I've discussed mental health and things like that, but hopefully with a positive outcome. But yeah, so there's another element, Phil, in terms of that, which is, oh my God, this is rubbish, talking about a product or a company or another YouTuber or something. Often now I'm going to sound a little bit nasty, but I have to say this and get this off my chest. Often those YouTubers in there are the guys who are saying, you know what, I'm the guy who's going to tell it like it is. I'm the real. I'm going to give you the real deal. I don't pander to other people. Da da da. What they don't tell you is, as long as they keep up that little spin they've got, they get more views on their videos, and that may be why they're doing that. So there's some.
We're keeping it real.
So, like, people want to out there are thinking of starting a channel. What is the first thing that you would advise them to do?
First thing is do it, okay? So I knew about YouTube for, obviously, like everyone else, for many years, and my main excuse to myself was I'm too old. It's a young guy's game. People just like all the young YouTubers out there. Or I don't have enough experience, or whatever it was. And the reality is the only way to do it is to do it. So don't even hesitate for another day. Get your camera out and make your first video. It will be awful, and that's fine. You know, you need to put it out there. Don't sit around. You know, like the way people have children. You hear people say, "Oh, we'll have children when we're ready, when we've paid off this and we've saved up a bunch of money, and you know we've done a course on parenting or whatever." I don't know what, but the only way you become a parent is to become a parent. There's nothing that can prepare you for it, and being a YouTuber and doing that kind of thing is pretty much the same. So don't hesitate too much. Don't worry too. Although I think it's an advantage, obviously, to have a brand and all that. I did all that up front. I literally spent 3 months making an intro and getting my logo ready. That was unnecessary. I didn't need to do that. I don't even have an intro music or anything like that anymore on my videos. That's a way of getting rid of your viewers in the first 30 seconds, basically. So don't fall into those sort of traps of thinking you need to be super prepared. But do not make the mistake of making it about yourself. No one cares about you, so be humble. Think about what your viewers need to know and what they're going to gain from their videos. People are a little bit interested in me. I'm not really a big YouTuber, but I sort of noticed after I had maybe about 40 or 50,000 subscribers, people were remotely interested in me and what I was doing. Before that, forget it. They don't care. So a lot of people want to go, I'm going to do like a blog style channel and I'm going to take my camera out and film me. No one cares unless you're a remarkably engaging person or you've got an extraordinary lifestyle in some way. So I see people making that mistake. Maybe it's vanity, I don't know. But trying to avoid that. So always just try and think, how is the viewer going to benefit from this video? What are they going to walk away with? What are they going to gain out of it? You know, so that serve your viewer would be my main thing, you know, and you'll be fine. Your audience will find you.
Good advice.
There's our cue.
Very cool stuff.
Yeah, I need to take that advice myself.
I want it to be about me.
Well, I mean, yeah, or well, more so about the helpful aspect of things. Sometimes sometimes on my YouTube channel, I can just rant about stuff that nobody cares about.
Well, I mean, somebody always cares about everything, but you know, I suppose. It's this chicken and egg. In order to do it really, really well, you're going to need time. And if you want to have time to do it, it needs to be a job. You're not going to be able to do it really well if you're just doing it in your spare time. So then in order to make it your job, you're going to have to make it commercially viable enough. And that sounds awfully corporate and cold, but commercial viability in this sense means making content that people are going to care about and want to watch, you know. And you get to make the content. It's a bit like music in this sense again. You get to make the content that you want to make a little later on. You can indulge a little bit. I can afford to indulge here and there. Well,
a fascinating topic, and thanks so much for coming on.
Awesome
My
stuff.
pleasure.
Okay. And
Can't wait to come back and talk about songwriting.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to do that sometime soon. Okay, that's all the time we have on Song Talk Radio. Special thanks to Mike Enjo. And where's the best place we can find out about you and Creative Sauce? Like you say, you have a number of channels.
Yeah, Creative Sauce is the main one. You can Sauce as in SAUCE, and then Studio One Revealed is my Studio One channel, and I've also got Cakewalk Revealed, which is my Cakewalk channel.
Okay, and we'll put links to those channels in the episode post for this, or the show post for this episode. And we want to hear from you, so please send your comments on Facebook or Instagram to @SongTalkRadio, or send us an email, feedback@songtalk.ca. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel for live performance videos and full episodes, and subscribe today to the Song Talk Radio podcast on your favorite podcast provider. You can find links to all the products, books, and web services we mentioned on the show on our resources page on the website. And please join us at our next monthly Song Talk meetup. Whether you're in Toronto for our in-person meetups or anywhere in the world for our online meetups, it's free to join on meetup.com and free to attend. Bring a song and a lyric sheet and get constructive feedback from other songwriters. Stop by songtalk.ca for the link. You can follow me at neilmodi.com. You can follow Phil.
PhilEmery.ca.
And Mike, what's your favorite social media platform? Where do you post the most?
Probably on Facebook, actually. Yeah. You can find me on. Well, if you find me on there, I probably won't take your friend request because I get quite a few thousand of them. But that sounds terrible. But look for the Creative Sauce Cakewalk group, and I'll often be in there. And the Studio One Revealed Cakewalk, Studio One Revealed group as well. Yeah,
Studio One group is also as well. People there. Okay, and be sure to stop by the website songtalk.ca to browse past shows and find out how you can be a guest. Thanks for tuning in, and keep on writing,
listening,
and and viewing, and subscribing. Subscribe now.
Cool.
Great now.
Cool.
That's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I'm a Cubase user, so I haven't seen your channel yet, Mike. But I will check out the EQ.
You might watch your fellow Canadian. I'm trying to think of his channel name now. But Chris Salem is a friend of mine. He's a big Cubase YouTuber as well.
Oh, cool.
Mixdown Online is his channel. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I think I've come across him.
Yeah. The big bearded guy. Yeah. He has
he's French, I believe, isn't he?
Well, French Canadian. Yeah.
French Canadian. Yeah.
Francophone.
Yeah.
Francophone. Yes.
Yeah, we have a catch-up once a month or so, and I think he came on a couple of my live shows early on, but nice. He's a great guy as well, yeah.
Indeed.
He produces great content. I used to use Cubase some years ago as well. I think the last one I used was Cubase 9. Probably going back a long time ago, but that was great. Cubase is awesome. I'm a bit jealous of some of its features here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Phil showed me a few things. I was like, "Wow, I wish Cakewalk did that. I wish Studio One did that." Yeah. Very cool.
I fear for the future of Cakewalk at the moment, really, all in all. But
that's part of the reason I jumped ship to Studio One, because Cakewalk is so uncertain right now.
So what happened with it?
Well, they've had it under announcement for the last year that they're going to release Cakewalk Sonar. Right now, you can only get it if you subscribe to the BandLab. What's it called? The BandLab Passport or something?
Yeah, the BandLab sort of subscription service, and then they sort of let you have it for free, I suppose, within that. Yeah. But they've managed it pretty poorly in terms of marketing. I did actually have a private meeting with them. They came to me and said, would you like to give us some advice on things? And I was pretty frank with them about it, but I went away feeling a little bit sorry for the team itself. They're under a tremendous amount of pressure, and probably people look at companies like this and imagine a big corporation with, but the reality of Cakewalk is it's like 7 people who work from home in different parts of the world, and only 4 of them are developers. So you can imagine creating new features and things within that is,
it's a lot.
just keeping up with bug fixes mostly, So,
jeez.
And what I learned from that was that they are beholden to BandLab. So there's the Cakewalk team, but they're really owned. It's owned by BandLab as another business, and the marketing and the pricing and the release dates is not up to them at all. So they're kind of frustrated themselves by that because BandLab have been dragging their heels on it. I suspect that BandLab want to see how it goes as a subscription, and if they get enough out of it, then they'll just go with that and not bother with a full paper. But it's been a disaster. But way back in the late 90s when I was using Cakewalk, I actually remember back then thinking about Cubase, that I would read the magazines, about some features that were out in Cubase, and I'd think, oh, Cakewalk's had that for ages. Why are they sort of going on about this? Cakewalk was always poor at marketing itself. I don't know why, but
it was never mentioned in the magazines or in blogs or anything like that. No. It's always left out of the loop. It's weird.
Always viewed as this sort of slightly cheap bargain basement sort of door, even though it was quite capable. So, I don't think that's changed actually.
So many of the companies that I've worked with is they'll plan for the first 3 years or something. They never plan enough for marketing. And marketing is really like almost 70% of what they're doing, because you might have a great product, but if nobody knows what it is, you can't sell it,
Yeah.
And it's just marketing never stops. It's like you're doing it all the time.
Yeah.
And if people aren't used to that, they just want to do, we'll just do one push and that'll be enough. Going, no, you have to do it just never stop doing it.
It's weird. Like all these Facebook groups you go on, everyone's like, what's a good free DAW for Windows or whatever? And everyone's always Reaper. Reaper's not even free, technically. Right? But how did Reaper suddenly get a jump start on everybody else?
But to be honest with you,
it's so young.
When I started the channel 6 years ago, I was already using Studio One as my main DAW then. I'd happened to have used Cakewalk for a long time. And then there was this question of, what's the best free DAW? And I didn't even know that Cakewalk was still around at that time, let alone that it was free. So again, they hadn't even marketed that particularly well. And then I sort of did some research. I thought, Cakewalk's there. Well, that's free. And I thought, well, I can definitely recommend that. I know that you can record whole albums with it because I had, so I made a couple of videos, and then suddenly I became the voice of Cakewalk accidentally on YouTube. I didn't intend for that to happen. So I was living this weird dual existence of all of my projects. My current projects were actually in Studio One, but I was teaching people how to use Cakewalk because it was free. And I was, as I alluded to in the show there, I knew what it was like to be poor and not have $100 to spend on something or what have you. So I was like, okay, well, I'm happy to endorse this as a free thing. It's maybe not the best one out there, but it's free. And if you need to make some music, there it is. But during that time, and the channel's 6 years old, I undoubtedly became the most popular YouTuber for Cakewalk. And I was doing some Studio One videos here and there. And even after I'd made 2 or 3 Studio One videos, Presonus reached out to me. Is there anything we can do to help you? Started to tell me about any new releases they had coming, got me beta things. During my 6 years of Cakewalk, despite being the biggest YouTuber, it was only 6 months ago that they reached out to me for the first time and sent me an email. Right? Yeah. And that tells you something about their marketing, that they just basically
didn't have any.
They
didn't have any.
Jeez.
It's just not existing. And they hadn't certainly got into the new marketing. I mean, everybody who's producing music software knows you need to get it out to the music YouTubers. That's 101 these days. So it was curious, you know, in that way. Sad, really, because I don't think they're going to last. But even though I've created a whole new channel for them, but I just don't see it. I don't see it happening.
It's a tough business model that they've chosen, you know? It's,
yeah.
Well, it's what are you going to have to offer, you know? I mean, at the time when I made a comparison video about a year ago, which most people saw, some people got irritated with me because I was saying that Studio One was better. But I was trying to say, well, look, Cakewalk, if you're going to now be in the marketplace and start charging for it, then the way you're going to be judged is different. You're no longer free.
Yeah.
And here's the harsh reality. You're not up to speed. As I said in that video at the time, while you're going to get up to speed to make it sort of bug-free and, you know, maybe look a bit nicer, I'm sure Steinberg are probably heavily invested at the moment on the new AI features they're bound to add to it over the next couple of years, or Studio One and other people will be doing all that and putting lots of resources and development into that. And Cakewalk's basically, they're just trying to keep it stable more than anything. Not very compelling for people.
And before BandLab came along, like Sonar Platinum was $450, $500 if you wanted to buy it.
It was.
Oh, right. It was not. It wasn't expensive as Cubase or any of the other ones. More expensive than Logic.
But the other thing that I gathered, interestingly, through it was Cakewalk. The Cakewalk developers, that lovely team, that poor team, really, of seven guys or so, make Cakewalk, right? But all of the plugins that came with Cakewalk were not developed by them.
No,
they bought the licenses for them, right?
Right.
And some of them, they own those licenses, so they're able to keep them. But there's these, you wouldn't be familiar with them, Phil, but there's these Sonatus. In fact, they're not even VST plugins that come with it. They're DirectX plugins.
DirectX plugins, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
And they're great.
They're great. They function well, but
I miss them in Studio One.
I know. The way they look, though, they don't look sexy. And you've got to have things looking sort of gorgeous for people these days. If you're going to market them and put them, those screenshots in your marketing, they've got to kind of look like they belong to today's era. And they kind of just, with their bubble buttons and things, they look like something from 1991, unfortunately.
Yeah, they look like Windows 3.1.
They do, but they work beautifully. Now, any other company would go, we'll give them a facelift. But of course, the Cakewalk team can't do that because they don't own the IP for them. They own the license, but they can't actually improve them in any way. And they don't really have the technical team to develop their own plugins. So I don't see it happening really. But there you go. We'll see. My fingers are crossed because I have a soft spot for them.
Yeah, me too. Like I was a Cakewalk user for so many years, and it's like I would be sad to see them go, even though I don't use it anymore. I still have lots of projects that are. But
do you find with Studio One that things go smoother for you once you get over the learning curve, or?
Yeah, to be honest, it wasn't that much of a learning curve. Thanks to your videos and Joe Gilder as well was a big help.
He's great. Yeah.
And the other guy. His name now, but anyway, they're actually Personas employees. These guys, right? Like they work for Personas, and But I found a few little things. I was actually going to do a video myself doing a comparison, things I missed in Cakewalk that don't have that I can't do in Studio One, and then the many things I can do in Studio One that I can never do in Cakewalk.
Yeah. Opening it up without it crashing is a really big bonus.
I mean, my Cakewalk experience has been pretty stable, to be honest.
Actually,
Studio. But that being said, Studio One has been rock solid. Like, has not given me any troubles because I was pushing my plugins too hard.
I think one of the things that I found when I've spoken to Cakewalk. I mean, the thing about Cakewalk is many people have been using it for decades. So sometimes, although Studio One probably does things objectively better than Cakewalk in terms of less clicks and things to get things done, the fact that it's just different is what confuses the hell out of people because their muscle memory for doing things has been the same for 15 or in some cases with Cakewalk for over 30 years, some people have been using it for. So,
right.
But
one of the things that really threw me is that Cakewalk. I don't even know how the other DAWs do this. I was describing this to you, Phil, a while back, that the track view and the console view are one-to-one relationship. In Studio One, they're completely separate. Like you can have buses and things in the console view and not in your track view. And that threw me in Studio One. I was like, why is this not showing up in both locations? I don't understand. Then I watched a YouTube video that described how they were different. Oh, okay.
yeah. That's usually the thing. But overall, though, I mean, I'm sure that me and you could both hop into Cubase tomorrow and get somewhere with it reasonably quickly.
Oh, yeah.
The only DAWs that are super different, really, are probably like FL Studio, which is quite a different way of thinking about things. Yeah. The only one I can think of. But
Ableton is like that as well, isn't it?
Ableton is a slightly different creature as well. Yeah, as far as I've seen people use it.
I always wanted to use it because I think it's kind of a cool approach.
Yeah, it's a different approach.
I tried to use Reaper once, but no matter what I did, I couldn't get it talking to my audio interface, so I just gave up on it.
It's a curious one because, every video I'd make about these topics, there'd always be someone saying, Reaper's great. There's always someone in the comments. Yeah. They're very evangelical about their DAW.
Yeah.
But I've tried it a couple of times and sort of gone, that's all right. Okay. I mean, I don't know what the fuss is about. People will say, because you can customize it so much. And I'm like, that's kind of like the difference between MySpace back in the day and Facebook. MySpace, you could make it your own web page basically and customize it to her. But when I'm in the middle of a song, I'm not interested in changing the color of my interface or doing all that kind of stuff. I'm recording my song. I really don't care about the customization to that degree. It's like,
I think Reaper is also a bit more tricky to get set up because it's more sort of open.
Yeah.
But it seems to take a bit more work to get it set up.
Yeah. I mean, people have different experiences, I suppose. I recently tried out Luna.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I did it was really strong in some. But the thing about it is I made a video. It went off. I think it's got almost 200,000 views on it, like over the last couple of months. And loads of people were like, I just couldn't get it to work. It just crashed on me. And I've had no problems with it at all. It just worked for me. So people will have different setups and things, You never can tell. So
we've done a couple of episodes on the podcast about DAWs and stuff, and we're always like, the one you know how to use, the one your friend has, that's the best one for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the awkward things about me becoming the sort of face of Cakewalk on YouTube, really, because then people assume that I'm a Cakewalk fanboy.
Yeah.
Or when I became more open about the Studio One, that I'm a Studio One fanboy, and I'm really not. I couldn't care less. And I say to people, it's like Windows. I use Windows as my main PC, but I've got a MacBook Pro and I've got a Linux server. Like, I don't really care about any of these things in terms of being a fanboy. Whatever gets the job done. I've got an Android phone and an iPad as a tablet. So, I don't feel a bit awkward about putting my own self in a box like that and having to praise it just because I'm a fanboy.
And that's just it. Like, you don't have to. You don't feel like you need to be loyal to any one brand. I mean, people who are like you say, they're rather religious about their brands. They'll like that. They'll like it no matter how much they screw up or how much they, put out a bad product or whatever. Right?
Exactly right. But it's a shame when people get tribal like that. It's just I basically scroll past anything that gets tribal like that, and you do what you do, and I'm quite sure that as I say, Phil uses Cubase, and I'm quite sure it's a wonderful thing to use. I watch a few videos on it here and there. I go, looks nice.
Whatever you know.
But I don't. Pro Tools or Avid sent me a free copy of Pro Tools. No one ever gets that, like a full license and everything. I guess they wanted me to make a video, and I tried it. I had used Pro Tools like version 9 some years ago, and I thought, I'm getting it for free. I guess I'll try and hang in there with it. But I lasted about a day. I hated it so much. I was like, why is everything so difficult in this thing? It's like, they couldn't possibly make it more difficult.
Yeah, everyone I know who uses it hates it.
Yeah.
It's a curious thing.
It's the standard, but I hate it,
I wonder if that's
Yeah, so
changing
you-
now,
you-
because you get more independent studios opening up and they just use
Well,
whatever
that's
they
right,
use,
yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah, you can always share stems and things, you know. It's pretty easy
Yeah.
to share stems if people are mixing different. But, you know, maybe the narrative should be, well, if this is the industry standard and everyone hates it so much, maybe I should do a thumbnail for this. Is Avid holding the industry back? Like,
holding
how
the
many
industry
man
hostage.
hours have been wasted in the industry by Avid's poor design?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was such a, you know, back in the day, it was such a different world. You need like a board in your computer to do like some of the
That's right,
stuff that Pro
yeah.
Tools that could do that no one else
Yeah.
could do.
And back in the day, it was the only game in town.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, but Cubase and things like Cakewalk did come along reasonably soon afterwards. You know, even Logic was there. I remember someone using Logic. in the
eMagic.
late
eMagic had it.
90s. So, yes,
Yeah.
eMagic had it. Yeah, but yeah, it's an amazing industry that we're in that sense, because I can't think of any other industry where there's sort of like 8 main players. You know,
Yeah.
normally they get dominated by one, but it's a very competitive industry. It's great, I think. Really, really good.
And it's an interesting combination of professional and amateurs. You know, where you have
I see.
kind of like cameras are like that. You have, you know, some professional cameras, but you actually probably have a lot more amateurs than you have professionals.
Yeah, and the marketing
Certainly
spin
true.
is even for the amateurs to buy the professional stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But
Well, I
it
had a
has
friend who
changed,
worked-
obviously.
I had a friend who worked at, you know, Yamaha guitars, and he always said, you know, if they just sold guitars to professionals, they'd be out of business.
Yeah.
Yeah, precise. And it's almost like my channel in that sense is that there's no point in me making content directed at people who are professional. They should know it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm really
Yeah,
aiming.
and they don't.
Mostly I'm aiming at people that are just getting started. It is my mindset most of the time. You know,
That's the way to
there's
do it.
usually a constant stream of those. They keep coming in. So, but yeah. Listen, guys, it's been lovely to chat with you. I need to move on to the next meeting.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot for coming on, Mike. It's a pleasure to speak
great.
with you finally.
Yes.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, let me know when it's going out. And
Yeah, for sure. I'll shoot you a note when it's done, and be in touch.
Awesome, guys.
All right.
Thanks so much.
All right.
All right. Take care.
Have a good morning.
All right. See ya.
Yeah.
Bye.
See ya.
Cheers.
Bye.